Here's an opportunity to make your cattle operation more drought resistant. Um, it is dry right now since the beginning of June, and it's now the middle of July. Since the beginning of June, we've got less than an inch of rain total, which is significantly less than normal. Usually June's pretty wet. If I showed you a pasture with grass, it would be very dry and crispy. Out here in the brush, it's quite green. And so here on a hillside, this is essentially wasteland in terms of anything else, but turn the cattle in here and they'll eat a lot of the stuff here. So here's an example. That's a wild grapevine. They will eat that. There's lots of things out here they will eat. Now they have to work a little harder. That's like 5-leaf ivy, Virginia creeper. They will eat that. They love that actually. There's a little bit of grass here you can kind of see. That's my dog in the leaves. A little bit of grass here. This is some of your wild grasses, like broom sedge and stuff like that, which is not very good, healthy for them, but they will eat it when they're hungry. This here, I'm not sure what this plant is, but they will eat it. I've seen them eat it. Some sort of wild legume or something. It'll be gone when they get out here. This is a little walnut tree. They'll eat leaves off of that. Another one there. All this stuff will be gone. Some wildflowers that went to seed, they'll eat that kind of stuff. Right over here, little redbud tree, they will eat that, and they like them. Oak, little oak trees, they will take a few bites out of them, but it's not really their favorite. And there's plenty around, so they're not definitely hurting that population of oak trees any. So there's several things they're going to have to work, but they can find something to eat here. And there's a cherry tree. People panic about cherry trees and animals not supposed to eat them because they're poisonous. If they're green on the plant and they eat it off of the tree, there's nothing wrong with it. It's when they die and fall off and are drying that they have poison, cyanide. There's a little hickory tree. They'll eat leaves off of that. You see there's a little bit of grass here and there. Some back in there, even some that went to seed on up here. Even a little bit of fescue up in here. They're going to have to work hard, but they're going to find some things to eat. Persimmon tree, they'll eat the leaves off of that. They'll love that stuff. So they're not going to go hungry. They just have to work a little harder, look a little harder to find it. Down here, there's a lot of this. That's huckleberries, huckleberry plants. I don't know if they eat those or not. I've never seen them eat them. Kind of wish they would, because I've got all kinds of them here. But this allows the cattle to find something to eat when all the grass is too dry to be eaten. So they're not going to go hungry, and they can come out here for a couple weeks. There's a little over 40 acres out here. I'm going to turn the herd out here for somewhere between 10 days to 2 weeks. We'll keep an eye on how stuff's going, and there's some old wild grass there. They'll eat some of that. And they get a nice healthy diet out here, but they have to work at it. Now you say, well, why don't you get goats? They'd eat all that. That is true, but the problem with goats, two things here. One's fences, and the other's coyotes. So anyway, just some notes about an opportunity to make your cattle operation more drought resistant. Been doing this for years. My father and grandfather been doing this since the 60s, running cattle up in places like this. You can't stock it as heavy as you could stock a pasture. That's pretty obvious, but there are things to eat out here. Turn them up in here. They'll eat them. They'll do just fine. Keep an eye on the cattle's condition and the condition of the land, and it's actually good for everything. Here's another example. Out in the brush here, there's this little opening. It's got some grass growing, but the grass is pretty well eaten down. There's a little bit of this old Bermuda that's growing. There's a little bit of fescue, but you can see they worked it pretty hard. That's Jimson weed. That is poisonous if they eat too much. I have seen them take a bite and then they either spit it out or don't eat anymore. But you can see here that they have actually eaten some of the weeds. Um, you see this buckbrush, which is still green. Here's some more, still green buckbrush. Look at those little leaves coming out. Look how that's been ripped off. That's because the cattle took a bite out of that earlier. They can't eat a lot of buckbrush because it's pretty high in tannin, kind of like the oak trees, but they'll take a bite here and there. Here's one of your little hickory trees. They ate the top out of that, and it's growing back. There's all kinds of stuff out there they'll eat. Look at this buckbrush. They ate all the way up that. All the best leaves they ate. And same thing with this little walnut tree. They ate all that off of there. They like that kind of stuff. That mixed with a little bit of grass out here and some wild forbs or wild weeds, they're going to find plenty to eat. One more little note here. You would probably struggle if you took cattle that have been on pasture their whole life and turned them out into something like this. They kind of got to be cattle that know what to look for and what they can eat. So I pay attention when I'm saving heifers and keeping animals to use for breeding animals for the herd in the future. Animals that do okay when we come out here. The ones that start getting thin when we turn them out here, they either don't know what to eat or they're not performing as well on this kind of pasture. You got to pick animals that work well in your situation. But if you pay attention, you'll see which animals do okay in places like this. And there's something to eat out here when there's nothing in the pasture. In the pasture, it's pretty much used up. We'd be feeding hay and or grain right now if we had nothing but pasture and it was all used up. Pay attention to your animals, pay attention to land. It helps them both grow.